If you remember, we studied the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. We're still working on it. So first, in the lower limb, if you remember, we studied the coxal bone or the hip bone. The coxal bone, if you remember, was formed of 3 fused bones. Those were the ilium, pubis, and ischium. And if you remember, those 3 fused bones are going to be meeting one another inside the socket. We call this socket is my acetabulum. And if you remember, the acetabulum is the site of articulation of the head of the femur. And the articulation between the acetabulum and the head of the femur is what forms the hip joint. Also, if you remember, studied important markings in the coxal bone. We've seen the joint between the iliac bone and the sacrum. We call this is my sacroiliac joint. Sacroiliac joint. We've seen this curved ridge of the iliac bone. We call this is my iliac crest. And if you remember, another things that we've seen this time in the ischial bone was the ischial spine, this pointed part in the ischial spine. And if you remember, above the ischial spine, we've got a large notch. This is my greater sciatic notch. It's on here. Greater sciatic notch. And remember, below the ischial spine, we see the lesser sciatic notch, which is in here. So remember, between the two, we've got this ischial spine. The pubic bone is formed of a pubic body and superior pubic ramus, inferior pubic ramus. Superior pubic ramus is going to be, as you see on here, attaching the pubic bone to the iliac bone. Inferior pubic ramus is going to be attaching the pubic bone to my ischium or ischial bone. Remember, the superior pubic ramus as well as the inferior pubic ramus, they are forming together a large hole that will serve as the site for the blood vessels and nerves to go in and out of the pelvic cavity. If you remember, the pubic bones, the right and left pubic bones, gonna form a joint together. This is called my pubic symphysis or my symphysis pubis. Pubic symphysis. And below the pubic symphysis, we've seen an arch. We call this is the pubic arch. And if you remember, this pubic arch is one of the major differences between the female pelvis and the male pelvis. Remember, a female pelvis will have a wide pubic arch. It has an obtuse angle. Compared to in males, it's gonna be narrow. It has an acute angle, less than 90 degrees. So this pelvis that we're looking at in here, it's gonna be a female pelvis. It has a wide pubic arch. Remember, what do we call this hole that serves as site for blood vessels and nerves to travel in and out of the pelvic cavity? We call this is my obturator foramen. Obturator foramen. Obturator foramen again is this large hole that will be formed by the pubic body, superior pubic ramus, and inferior pubic ramus as they get connected to the other two iliac bones, the two other coxal bones, ilium and ischium. We also did discuss the different parts of the femur, if you remember. The femur did have a head, this ball-shaped structure that will be articulating with the acetabulum to form the hip joint. On the opposing side to the head of the femur, we've seen this large bony eminence. We call this is my greater trochanter. This is on here, greater trochanter holds this. And we've seen a much smaller one that we can see mainly from the posterior side. This is going to be my lesser trochanter. This is still what we have been discussing last class, Ali. Still review of what we've discussed in the previous class, which is chapter 7, yes. If you remember, when we looked at the lower part of the femur, the distal epiphysis, we've seen two bulging articular surfaces, two elliptic shaped articular surfaces. So those are called my medial and lateral condyles that will allow the articulation between the femur and the tibia to form the knee joint. And the knee joint, if you see on here, you're gonna have a short bone. It's a sesamoid bone, means it travels within soft tissue, or is it located inside soft tissue? This is called the patella. If I remove the patella on here, I will see a smooth surface on the anterior aspect of the femur. This is gonna be the patellar surface. This on here is my patellar surface. Hold this. Another part that we have discussed last class It was this large notch located between the medial and lateral condyles. We call this notch is my intercondylar notch because it's located between the medial and lateral condyles. We call this is my intercondylar notch. It's a bony depression between the condyles, so we can call it intercondylar notch. Remember, above the articular surfaces, we've got bony eminences. We call those bony eminences my epicondyles. I'm looking above the condyles, so I call them epicondyles. So I have a medial epicondyle above the medial condyle and the lateral epicondyle above my lateral condyle. And something that we've mentioned last class, how would I recognize which one is medial, which one is lateral? Look at the head of the femur. The head of the femur is on the medial side. So the condyle on the same side as the head of the femur, it's going to be my medial condyle. And the one on the other side is going to be my lateral condyle. Moving on to the bones of the leg. We have the large bone of the leg on here, which is located on the medial side. This is going to be my tibia. And the tibia on here, this is going to be the bone that holds all your body weight down to the foot. All your body weight gets transmitted from the femur down to the foot by the tibia. The other bone that will share in the formation of the leg, it's going to be the fibula. Most common mistakes, people get confused with the names of the two bones. Again, what's the name of the large bone is my tibia, and the name of the thin bone of the leg, and here it's my fibula. So why do I have a fibula if it doesn't carry any body weight? All the body weight gets transported down to the foot by the tibia and not the fibula. Why would I have a fibula on here? The main function of the fibula is to create a surface area for muscle attachment. So rather than having only the tibia for me to attach the muscles to, I would have another bone which creates more surface area for more muscles to be attached. But the fibula itself, it doesn't carry any body weight. No body weight would be carried down by the fibula. It's too weak to carry any of the body weight. Moving on here to the different parts of the tibia that we need to remember. If we are looking closer on here, we can see it has two concave elliptic shaped articular surfaces. Those are my medial and lateral condyles of the tibia. And between the two condyles, we've got an eminence, an elevated part. This is called my intercondylar eminence. And from the name on here, what do I mean by intercondylar eminence? It's the elevated part between the two condyles. So how would I differentiate between medial and lateral condyles? How would I know which side is medial, which side is lateral? Remember, the tibia is the medial bone of the leg. So if you touch the inside of your ankle right now, if you touch the inside of your ankle, you will feel there is a bony eminence on the medial side. This bony eminence on the medial side of your ankle, it's the medial malleolus. The medial malleolus, it's on the medial side of the medial bone, which is the tibia. So this what tells you which side is medial, which side is lateral. So here I don't have a head like I do have for the femur. Here I have the medial malleolus. So the medial malleolus is going to be on the medial side. So the condyle here on the same side, this is going to be my medial condyle. And the condyle on the other side, this is going to be my lateral condyle. So again, important markings that we need to be able to identify. First one is my medial condyle. How would I know that this is a medial condyle? It's on the same side as the medial malleolus. On the other side, I have this concave elliptic shaped surface. It's my lateral condyle. And both medial and lateral condyle is going to be articulating as you see on here. With the medial and lateral condyles of the femur to share in the formation of my knee joint. So you have medial and lateral condyles of the femur articulating with the medial and lateral condyles of the tibia. Moving on to the second bone located in the leg, which is going to be my fibula. Important structures that we need to identify here will be the head of the fibula, and down here, if you touch the outside of your ankle, the lateral side, the outside of the ankle, you will feel that you have a bony eminence on the outside of the ankle. This is what we call the lateral malleolus. Lateral malleolus or lateral malleolus, this is going to be this bony eminence on the lateral side, which is part of my fibula. And again, what did we call this one? This bony eminence on the medial side of the ankle. This is my medial malleolus or malleolus. And it's part of which bone again? It's part of my tibia. All right. One other important marking that we can see on here is this elevated bony eminence in the anterior aspect of my proximal epiphysis of the tibia. This is going to be my tibial tuberosity. Tibial tuberosity serves as a point of attachment of the patellar ligament. So if we're drawing on here, the muscle called the quadriceps femoris. Quadriceps femoris has 4 heads. One head is going to be coming down from the anterior superior iliac spine from the ilium. Like this. And 3 other muscles will get their origin from the shaft of the tibia itself. So all this is my quadriceps femoris. The quadriceps femoris will form a tendon that will be surrounding this cube-shaped bone called the patella. And then as a continuation of the quadriceps tendon, we're gonna form the patellar ligaments that will be inserted in the tibial tuberosity. So if we want to draw this separately, this is how it's gonna look like. If this is my femur, like this. And this will be tibia with the medial and lateral with the medial and lateral condyles. And this is going to be my fibula like this. So here, this elevated part is called my tibial tuberosity. And it's a site of attachment again for a muscle. We call this muscle, as it has 4 heads, it's my quadriceps femoris. Quadriceps has 4 heads, like this. They are 4 fused muscles. And the quadriceps muscle has a tendon. What's a tendon by definition? Tendon, remember, it's the connection between a muscle and a bone. This is what we call a tendon. So the connective tissue that will be attaching here the quadriceps to the patella, actually it's going to be surrounding the patella from everywhere. This tendon on here is going to be extending beyond the patella and will be inserted and attached to the tibial tuberosity. So what is the tibial tuberosity is a site for attachment of? It's the continuation of the tendon of the quadriceps, but we don't call it the tendon anymore because you see on here, it's connecting the patella to the tibia. So those are 2 bones attached to one another. So what do we call the attachment between 2 bones? It's a ligament. So we're gonna call this part on here, this is the patellar ligament. So again, what is the function of the tibial tuberosity? Tibial tuberosity is the site for attachment of the patellar ligament. And you understand now that the patellar ligament is just a continuation of the tendon of the quadriceps femoris. Moving on to the bones of the foot. If you remember, when we discussed the bones of the hand, we stated that the hand is formed of carpal bones, metacarpal bones, and the phalanges or the fingers. If you remember when we studied the bones of the hand, remember we started from the carpal bones, and remember we did have 8 carpal bones. And attached to the 8 carpal bones, we've got the metacarpal bones. And the phalanges. Remember, how did we remember the names of the carpal bones? We use the mnemonic, says Sally left the party to take Kathy home. And remember, how did we use it? We started from lateral to medial. We started with the proximal row, and then we go to the distal row. And how did we recognize that this is the lateral side of the hand? Remember, it's on the same side as the thumb. And how did I recognize that this is the thumb? Because simply the thumb is the only one that has a proximal and the distal phalanx. It doesn't have a middle phalanx. All right, unlike the rest of the 4 fingers, they will have proximal phalanx, middle phalanx, and the distal phalanx. So the thumb here is what told me that this side is my lateral side. So I started with the lateral side, the proximal row first, and then my distal row. So I started here. Sally left the party to take Kathy home. Remember, those were scaphoid, lunate, triquetral, pisiform, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. Those are my carpal bones. Remember the metacarpal bones, we didn't give them names, but we've given them numbers. So starting from the lateral side as well, thumb is gonna have first, next is gonna be second, third, fourth, and fifth metacarpal bone. So in the foot, we're gonna be doing exactly the opposite of what we did with the hand. So the easiest way for you to recognize this time, it's not carpal bones, those are called my tarsal bones. And they are not attached to metacarpal bones. Instead, they are attached to metatarsal bones. Remember, we started from lateral. So here we're gonna start from medial. And how would I recognize that this is the medial side of the foot? The big toe gonna have only a proximal phalanx and the distal phalanx. It doesn't have a middle phalanx, unlike the rest of the 4 toes. The other 4 toes gonna have proximal phalanx, middle phalanx, and the distal phalanx. The only one that has proximal and distal only, this is gonna be my big toe. And the big toe tells you that this here is your medial side. So we're gonna start from medial and we're gonna go lateral. We start from the distal row and then we're gonna be moving proximal. All right, for the tarsal bones, we do have only 7 tarsal bones, unlike the carpal bones, we did have 8 carpal bones. So for the tarsal bones, I have 7. For the carpal bones, I have 8. So first 3 that we're looking at in here, first one on here on the medial side in the distal row, this is gonna be my medial cuneiform. Comes next is going to be my intermediate cuneiform. Next is going to be my lateral cuneiform. So you have 3 cuneiforms. 3 cuneiforms. This is my medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, and lateral cuneiform. All the 3 are articulating posteriorly with the navicular bone. Navicular bone as well as the lateral cuneiform are going to be articulating with my cuboid. So again, start from medial to lateral. We start with the distal row first. We have 3 cuneiforms. We start medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform. And then all the 3 are articulating posteriorly with my navicular bone. Both the navicular and the lateral cuneiform are articulating with my cuboid bone. Posteriorly, we've got here articulating with the navicular as well as the cuboid. We've got a superior bone that will be carrying the weight down from the tibia. This is called my talus. And the bone of the heel, this is called my calcaneus. So again, looking at the tarsal bones, we start from medial, going laterally. We start with the distal row, and then we go proximal. So we start medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform. Those 3 again are articulating with my navicular bone. Navicular bone. Navicular bone as well as the lateral cuneiform are going to be articulating with my cuboid bone. Look on here, carrying the body weight down from the tibia to be distributed to the rest of the tarsal bones. It's going to be my talus. This is my talus on here. And the bone of the heels, this is going to be my calcaneus. 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 For the metatarsal bones, we don't give them names, we give them numbers, but again, we are moving in an opposite direction to what we did with the hand. Remember, from in the hand, we started from the lateral side, but here in the foot, we're gonna start from the medial side. So always start from the finger or toe that doesn't have a middle fat. So here in the foot, we're starting from the big toe. In the hand, we started from the thumb. So start numbering. This is gonna be my first, second, third, fourth, and fifth metatarsal bones. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Questions? Yeah, this is the only option. You mean on here or using the courseware, visible body on the left? Yeah, this is the only options they give me to write on here. This is the only options that I have in this application. But again, this is first, this is the second, third, fourth, and fifth. All right, so you start from the medial side. All right, the side of your big toe. Questions? All right, so for the Bones Lab exam, what do you expect to have as a type of question? So we have few types of questions that you will see. First is identify the bone. And when I ask you to identify the bone, please make sure you are mentioning the name of the bone. Identify the bone landmark. I am asking you to identify the name of the specific marking that is marked on the bone. Just name the specific marking. Identify the bone articulating with whatever number. So for example, I give you a marking on here, and this was the humerus, and this is the head of the humerus, and let's say head of the humerus is number 6. So I will ask you a question like, mention the bone articulating with number 6. So the bone articulating with number 6, it's the scapula. Also, please pay attention here to another form of the question. It might ask, mention the bone structure articulating again with 6. So what is the bone structure articulating with 6? So the part of the scapula that articulates with the head of the humerus. What did we call the part of the scapula that articulates with the head of the humerus? You remember? Glenoid cavity, exactly. Glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity. Also, some question will ask about to choose or to match the bone to its function. Match here. Match bone or bone structure to the function. So for example, sella turcica, the function is to allow, so it's gonna be the site for pituitary gland. Crista galli, if you remember, part of the ethmoid bone, it's the point of attachment of the brain to the skull. For example, mandibular condyle articulates with the temporal bone. And so on. So you're gonna have a list of bones or bone structures, and you're gonna have a list of functions of those bones that you're gonna be matching them to one another, like what you did with the tissues and the tissue lab exam, where you did have to match the bone, the tissue with its function. All right, so this is the only type of questions that you might see that will be without diagrams. The others will require diagrams for you to be able to identify, because you're going to be identifying a specific structure or a specific bone. So you need a picture to see in order for you to be able to identify those different marks. All right, any questions? Any questions? All right, we can have a break. Yes. So for the visible body lab assignment, it's a helpful practice tool, but it doesn't look like the visible body. So the exam doesn't look like the visible body lab assignment or the questions. So it's gonna be the same format like what you've seen in the review. So the only functions that you are required to know for the exam are the ones stated on your bones lists. So the only ones that you are required to know for the exam are the ones stated in the bones list. So if it says a function on the list, This means you are required to know it for the exam. So for example, on here, that's why I told you, you need not only to study the PowerPoints, you need also to keep an eye on the list, because the list has more information than what's on the PowerPoint diagrams. So the PowerPoint diagram is going to have all the bones and bone structures that you need to know, but they won't tell you any of the function.